This daily dose is brought to you by Pirate.Black. ARRR.
And not to mention that FTX, which we're going to get into, don't worry, was funneling through the Ukraine, through Congress, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, probably billions, funding it back through FTX, and then funding it back to basically all the Democrats. We're going to get into that even more. Everything that we're going to talk about is all related. It's amazing. But meanwhile, they're all the government people. They've been all over the place lately. They've had something called the COP27 or something, where hundreds of private jets all flew in to talk about man-made global warming. What's this all about? It's over 200 countries flying private jets to the climate change conference to get me to stop driving my SUV. Yeah, they fly in like huge aircrafts, bombers and stuff, full of giant gas-guzzling limousines for Joe Biden to go to one of those things. And then while they're there, at the climate change conference, they talk about how central bank digital currencies will be able to track everyone's carbon usage and basically control everything you do.
So central banks are also starting to understand nature has real value. Carbon, we already figured out. And carbon is moving very quickly into a system where it's going to be very close to a currency. Basically being able to take a ton of absorbed or sequestered carbon and being able to create a forward pricing curve with financial service architecture, documentation. I just came out of a meeting this morning how we're trying to accelerate that. To be quite honest, not to get very boring, but we're on financial topics and things, but they're going to be derivatives. And you need ISDA documentation if you want to trade a derivative in the marketplace. And all of this actually matters for nature as well. I'm going to quickly hand off, but again, I want to talk about value one more time, because the southern part of the world has value far greater than large elements of the northern part. And when we start thinking about and putting prices on water, on trees, on biodiversity, we find, where does that sit? I'm doing a lot of work out of Asia, and I say that my next door neighbor, Indonesia, is the left lung of the world, and obviously Brazil's the right, and Africa, absolutely critical. And we need their natural capital as a system-based world more than we need that 66 billion we've got sitting in the basement of the Bank of England. So how do we, and I'm hoping this discussion today, at least from a central banker's point of view, on how do we start tokenizing, how do we start building systems that actually create not only the value, but transfer that value around the world.
It seems like everyone's brain dead. You know, you got like Peter Schill, he still thinks Bitcoin's going to zero.
Going to drop out of the market like all bubbles, and everyone's going to want to sell. There's going to be no.
You got, oh man, so many, all these guys who are really popular, like Pompliano. He was hugely promoting both BlockFi and FTX, which both went to zero.
Today's episode is brought to you by FTX US. They're a safe, regulated way to buy Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. They've got very cheap fees, sometimes as much as 85% cheaper than their competitors. There's also no minimum fees, there's no withdrawal fees, or any other hidden fees.
Everyone lost all their money on it. But people, he's got a way bigger audience than we do. And, and then there was the what's his name? Kevin something. He's like a TV investment guy, which, as you know, is like, hola. Everyone's waving. You want to be in the video? Oh, it's her birthday? Yeah. All right, you want to be in a video on your birthday? Yeah. Feliz cumpleaños. Don't come to Mexico City. It's very dangerous. Yeah, Kevin something. He was like a huge promoter of FTX.
In managing the decisions on which projects to invest in, because I'm very fortunate, my deal flow is insane. I see everything. And I have to disclose, I'm a paid spokesperson to FTX and a shareholder there too, because we mentioned them, and big advocate for Sam because he has two parents that are compliance lawyers. If there's ever a place I could be that I'm not going to get in trouble, it's going to be at FTX.
Then you have Novorats, who I've called Novorats for a while. And very popular a couple of years ago. He got Luna tattooed on his arm. He got everyone wrecked. And then there's us over here, the Dollar Vigilante and the Crypto Vigilante, mostly making people fortunes. Although it's a bear market right now, it's very hard. But we just had a great trade, made money on FTX. And you know, there's only one coin that I know of that really didn't go down at all in the last few weeks. And it was our favorite holding at the Crypto Vigilante, called Diro. And I actually wrote in our last newsletter that I had sold all my crypto, almost all of it. I still hold some Pirate Chain. What else do I have a bit of? Not much, actually. And the reason I hold Pirate Chain is it's so illiquid that, because I want to actually, I'm buying more probably now or soon, but you can't buy like hundreds of thousands of dollars of it in like a day or it'll like double in price. So I didn't sell a ton of my Pirate Chain just because it's so illiquid that, because I want to buy back in anyway, but I will be buying a bunch of it. But I put in the newsletter that my biggest holding was actually Diro, and I had sold all my Bitcoin and I had sold almost all my Monero, as much as it hurt me to do at the time, in the last newsletter, like 2 weeks ago. How was that for timing? Like, we nail it every time. We featured Bitcoin at $3. We featured Ethereum at $2. No one knows about us. It's incredible. If anyone knows about us, they just say we're crazy. This is the world we live in. But it's great. I actually just love it. Yeah, all these guys. Who else was? There's so many like that were so popular. It's amazing, like people are so dumb. Like this is the world we live in, right? Like Shiba Inu is in the top 10 of all crypto coins. That's how dumb people are. And Dogecoin. Now, I don't want to hammer Dogecoin too much because it was one of the OG original cryptos. And it actually is pretty funny and cool, the concept. But Shiba Inu, I think one of the exchanges came out recently and said it's like their biggest, yeah, crypto.com, which might be next, by the way. Oh, you remember when I did the video and I said Celsius is probably going to go down before it went down? I've been nailing all this stuff. Crypto.com is probably going down. Might not, but probably. But with their biggest holding, Shiba Inu, I'm not even saying it like to be arrogant or anything. It's just like when you're right on everything all the time, like constantly, and everyone always says you're insane or you get banned or blocked, they'd rather sign up. That's the thing, like people get what they deserve and they actually create their own reality. And they want to sign up to stuff that makes them feel good. And when a guy goes, I tell you, Luna's gonna go to $1 trillion, they love that feeling and they don't want to do any of their own research. But here's the interesting tweet. I lost 20% of my portfolio in the crash. I lost 40% of my portfolio in Luna. I lost 10% in Celsius. I lost 10% of my portfolio in Voyager. I kept the last 20% of my portfolio in FTX in hope of making it back trading, and now it's gone. I'm done with this crypto shit. Well, he got it right. It is crypto shit. Like we've never recommended any of these things. We actually said Luna was going to crash. I forgot about that one. We said that the Luna stablecoin was going to crash Luna. And about a month or two later, it did. And we made fortunes on it. We tell people not to ever give your money to things like Celsius or Voyager. But he did. Yeah, so we actually called most of those things. And we've just been warning people. It's amazing. When Satoshi came out with Bitcoin, basically what he was saying to the world was, I've come up with a currency which you can hold the keys to, so you don't need a bank. You can even memorize your seed words and hold your own currency in your own brain. But what do most people do? They're like, well, I can get an extra 3% if I give it to these people. It's like, and then they just lose it all. It's like, good. You know, if they don't know, like, if you've subscribed to the TDV and TCV, you would know all this stuff. But most people don't do that. They just listen to all these people. Like, oh, and there's Michael Saylor I have to point out. Like, when Bitcoin was at $60,000, he was telling people to take out a mortgage, leverage everything they've got, and put it all into Bitcoin.
If I told you I know how it all ends, right? Once you know how it all ends, the only use of time is, how do I buy more Bitcoin? But take all your money, buy Bitcoin, then take all your time, figure out how to borrow more money to buy more Bitcoin, then take all your time and figure out what you can sell to buy Bitcoin. And if you absolutely love the thing that you don't want to sell it, go mortgage your house and buy Bitcoin with it. And if you've got a business that you love because your family works for the business, it's in your family for 37 years, and you can't bear to sell it, mortgage it, finance it, and convert the proceeds into the hardest money on earth, which is Bitcoin.
Now, I like Bitcoin. I think it's going to go a lot higher. I think Monero is going to be way more, and Dero is going to be unbelievable. But I would never, do you remember me ever saying when Bitcoin was at 60,000 to leverage everything, mortgage your home, buy Bitcoin? No. But he was another one who was really popular. Well, they're all coming out now in The Big Short too. It's Sam Bankman, Kwon Do, CZ, and Michael Saylor. The Big Short 2. The dip just kept dipping. Did you ever notice Do Kwon lost people like $100 billion? He's just totally free. He was actually on a podcast recently, laughing with another guy who said jail isn't that bad.
It's good to be here. Hey, Do, I just wanted to let you know jail's not that bad. It sucks, but it's not the worst thing ever. You know, so don't fret if that. I hope it doesn't happen, but if it does happen, it's not that bad.
Good to know.
Sam Bankman-Friedman free. The Voyager CEO free. Kyle Davies free. Suzu free. Do you know who's in jail? The creator of Tornado Cash, which is open source software that helps you have privacy on Ethereum. Yeah, it's all the government justice systems out there. This has actually been just amazing to watch, this whole FTX Alameda thing. And I'm going to get to how it all relates to everything else, including the selections in a second. I still can't get, and all this stuff's been coming out, like Sam Bankman lived in he was like in a relationship with Sweet Caroline. And lots of info coming out. They're all on like amphetamines and meth.
Like what you're saying is maybe there's some donations that you have made that you wouldn't make if you knew they were going to be immediately public.
And having orgies. And mind you, Bankman did so many things, saying he had a Toyota Corolla and he just wanted to give all his money away to like charities. Turns out he was living in a $35 million penthouse in the Bahamas, which is now for sale, by the way. So they basically stole all their clients' funds, gambled it, lost it all. And then when it became clear and people wanted to withdraw stuff from their exchanges, they shut down the withdrawals, but then they reopened it slightly, sent it to most of their friends. And then they said the Bahamian government told them that they have to let Bahamian residents withdraw, which was totally not true, by the way. So they did. So a bunch of people made millions of dollars in Bahamas, basically selling NFTs on FTX to other people who had like millions of dollars on there, and then withdrawing it for them. And a lot of that went to all their friends again. And then, to top it off, they said there was a hack, and everything that was left on the exchange was stolen, probably by SBF, and definitely probably someone at FTX. And then not to mention, FTX was basically they were on the World Economic Forum's website. You'll own nothing, and you'll be happy. But yeah, FTX was like a World Economic Forum. It was on their website. Here's an image of it. And then once everyone started noticing that, they took it down. Of course, crypto confidence soars after CEO defrauds customers, just like Real Bank. What do you say, sweet Caroline? One last time? Here's FTX 2021, FTX in 2022. So it's become quite clear that this was like a globalist operation. They were supported by the World Economic Forum. They were given tons of funds by all of the people in like the system, all the funds. And you know, a lot of these fund managers are such idiots. Like I heard from a couple who said, like people were asking them, how could you look at Sam and especially sweet Caroline and think it's okay to give them hundreds of millions or billions of dollars? And a bunch of them said, well, they were on the front cover of like Fortune magazine. It's like, that's your due diligence. And of course, Fortune magazine's all owned by the same people, all in the World Economic Forum. It was basically a built up scam, fraud. And I'm going to get to the what they're doing with the selections in a second. But it most likely was done, well, it's partly done to launder money for the globalists, but it's also done to try to ruin the crypto market. And then we literally just named him Bankman. I don't know, I'm kind of like a little infatuated with Caroline. She's so awkward and dumb and the way she, like, I'm trying to see if I could copy her little laugh. She's like, ah.
A big argument sort of back in whenever it was, June or July, about like, should we even do yield farming at all? And I was kind of like, oh, I don't know, this whole thing seems like weird, and aren't there risks, and like, what if these platforms get hacked, and like, it's like such a huge pain operationally, and you know, accounting wise and all of that. But yeah, I lost that argument, I guess. I'm now very glad. That whole summer, for me, a lot of it was just about sort of readjusting my expectations and being open to whatever happened.
I wish I paid a bit more attention to it. You know, my only thoughts on FTX until 2 weeks ago was how the hell, where did these people come from, and who is the Sam Bankman? It made no sense to me. Like, the crypto market's only about, 13 years old now. And in the early days, I knew everyone involved. Like, you know, it was Roger Ver and Charlie Schramm and Eric Voorhees, and there's a whole bunch I'm sure I'm missing. But most of them were all anarcho-capitalists, and we all knew why we wanted Bitcoin to succeed. We wanted it to destroy central banks. So for someone like Bankman to come along, and I've never heard of him, he came out of nowhere, and then he has this name, Bankman Fried. I wish I had looked into it a little bit, because it would have taken like 10 minutes. If I just saw one video of their fund manager, Sweet Caroline, I would have been like, short this, but I didn't look into it. But it's just gotten crazier and crazier. Hear me out. We hacked the exchange after filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy. You know, all the great people have mostly been like, actually, some of them have disappeared. Oh, another one of the first people who told me about Bitcoin was Trace Mayer. He's basically disappeared, but for a good reason. He's basically a billionaire now, and he's always been into privacy. So he doesn't tell anyone where he is. He doesn't do anything publicly, I don't think, anymore. But my point is, I knew everyone, but this Bankman guy came out of nowhere. And it's sad because a lot of the great people, like John McAfee, he was great. He was like, Monero's the only damn currency that's used.
Go on the dark web, find a single fucking vendor that will accept Bitcoin anymore. Nobody. 100% is Monero. Do you understand? So just like everybody in the very beginning on the dark web was Bitcoin, nobody accepted the credit cards. Now nobody accepts Bitcoin. Everybody accepts Monero. The world changes. People, wake the fuck up.
He also spoke out about the vaccines. In 2020, before the vaccines even came out, he was against the Internal Revenue Service and taxation, and he was on the run because of it. And they ended up killing him in a jail in Spain. It's amazing. Like, what's that old saying? It seems like all the good people seem to die young or something. The crypto guy we deserved, the guy they sent. Oh, just to mention, Sam Bankman said he was a vegan. I think he was like 30 years old. His body was unbelievably bad. I would say, like, if he really was vegan, actually there's lots of evidence he's not. He's a total con man. But like, he might have turned off a lot of people from veganism. Like, just, these people are all incredibly ugly. Oh, sweet Caroline. It's funny though, people are trying to pick, because there has to be a movie about this. This is actually huge. Like, I'm joking about it, but it's a huge, huge event. And all the things tied to it, which I haven't even got to yet. Like, this is like an epic movie. Of course, the movie will likely be like every movie. Like, Pearl Harbor wasn't about how the US made basically Japan attack them to get into World War II. It was a love story. The movie The Titanic wasn't about how JP Morgan killed off anyone against the Federal Reserve in 1913 and actually sunk the boat on purpose as part of an insurance fraud and to get rid of all the opposition. The movie Titanic was about a love story. So I'm sure any Hollywood movie about this will be totally not close to covering the real truth about it. But people are trying to pick who the actors will be, and so far I've seen some pretty funny ones. So here's some of them that people have found. Now keep in mind that Sam Bankman was going around saying there needs to be much more government regulation of the crypto market. I'm going to get into how he basically had ties to the Biden administration and the SEC, and they were trying to ram through a bill that would basically make FTX into like a monopoly under these regulations. And people don't realize how close this came to them doing it. They're actually still trying to ram the bill through that they've been supporting. But also FTX was just about to launch a stable coin. If they had done that, they probably could have kept this going for a while and used regulations to get rid of all their competition and probably hid most of their fraud. So in a way, this is really good this happened, but it's pretty funny because the anarcho-capitalists were all talking about how crypto, well, first of all, government shouldn't exist, and they shouldn't regulate anything, but that crypto actually regulates itself better than any government can. And don't forget too, one of the biggest frauds ever was MF Global, with, I think his name was John Corzine, who was actually the head of the NASDAQ prior to that. And he pulled up one of the biggest frauds in one of the most regulated markets. Like, these happen all the time. Enron, same thing. That was all regulated, right? But this is part of what they want. And already, Janet Yellen's come out saying there needs to be more regulations in the crypto market. And the clown token black lesbian in the White House saying the same thing.
Without proper oversight, cryptocurrencies, it risks harming everyday Americans. So this is something that clearly we monitor and that we see as an important issue. But the most recent news further underscores these concerns and highlights why prudent regulation of cryptocurrencies is indeed needed. The White House, along with the relevant agencies, will again closely monitor the situation as it develops.
But this goes deep, and I'm not going to give all the evidence here. That's not what I do. Hopefully other people in the crypto space do this. I'm sure they are. But like Bankman-Fried's, it's complicated. But basically his whole family's in the government, in regulation in the government. And I saw this tweet. Only one man can raise the billions required to save FTX. But that's the thing. They were actually money laundering tens or hundreds of millions of dollars from the US government, the Biden administration. They'd send it to the Ukraine. The Ukraine would put a lot of it back into FTX, which both helped keep it liquid for a bit. And then FTX would donate, and I think they donated tens of millions of dollars. It's probably a lot more, because they got hundreds of corporations, to Democrats in this selection. Yeah, it's US tax dollars at work. Biden gives US tax dollars in forms of military and humanitarian aid to Zelensky in the Ukraine. The Ukraine uses US aid to partner with FTX and gives them the money. FTX donates dollars to Democratic Party PACs and candidates. They back Biden. Repeat. This should be the real movie, Ponzi Scheme, film based on a true story. And here's Bruce Fenton, another anarcho-capitalist who's around like an OG of the early Bitcoin days. He's also spoken at Anarchapulco, I think. Or he's been on Anarchast at least. Sam Bankman takes customer money and donates $31 million to mostly Dems and $5 million to Biden. Biden appoints Gensler SEC chair. FTX meets him to discuss special treatment. The daughter of Gensler's old boss is the FTX president. Gensler's former staffer was FTX general counsel. Clear? I should have known too, but I don't pay attention to these globalist things too much. I pay a little bit, but not too much. But Bankman-Fried was like on stage at these things with Bill Clinton and war criminal Tony Blair, a war criminal, a presidential pedophile, and a crypto DNC cash cow walk into a bar on Epstein Island. Okay, now here's where it gets actually crazy. About 2 weeks ago, one of the co-founders of MakerDAO was in Puerto Rico, and he tweeted this: CIA and Mossad and pedo elite are running some kind of child sex trafficking entrapment blackmail ring out of Puerto Rico and Caribbean islands. They're going to frame me with a laptop planted by my ex-girlfriend who was a spy. They will torture me to death. So he tweets that he's uncovered a massive, basically child sex trafficking ring in both Puerto Rico and Caribbean islands. Where was FTX headquartered? Bahamas. So he tweets that. The very next day, he drowned. You know how that goes with the CIA, right? So that was 2 weeks ago. And then FTX, all this stuff starts to come out about FTX. Then when you look a little closer at FTX, and I didn't, and that, you know, I have to say, like, I can't look at everything, right? I don't really care about lots of this stuff. I care about real crypto. I care about Monero. I care about Dero, Pirate Chain. I care a little bit about Bitcoin, but not a ton. But I don't care about like all these exchanges. Like, to me, exchanges, they should all be decentralized exchanges. And by the way, I never personally ever put money on an exchange and leave it there. Like, if I'm going to buy Bitcoin, I bought a bunch, like I said a couple days ago, around 15,800. I'll transfer it onto an exchange in whatever form, quite often USDT or whatever it is, and buy the Bitcoin and immediately transfer it off. My holdings are on any exchange for no more than 1 minute. And that's the way crypto is supposed to be. But, you know, lots of people, for whatever reason, they don't. That's the biggest problem, is a lot of normies don't understand crypto. It's too bad. They've kept people like ourselves who talk about all this stuff way far away. They let people like that Kevin O'Leary and Pompliano and Michael Saylor and all these people all talk about like stupid stuff and BlockFi and Luna, Novarats and Luna. But here, we're over here talking about Monero and how you need to be very careful. You should always, if you don't have your own keys, you don't have your crypto. The average person has no idea about any of this. And that's why they've gotten wrecked. But That's also why I never noticed this Bankman guy, because I just didn't pay attention. Like, I heard about FTX and I was like, that sounds sketchy and weird, but I never even went to like his Twitter account and looked at it. But if I had, here's his profile photo of his Twitter account. Notice that t-shirt with the heart inside of another, basically a heart. Well, that's actually the logo, or the sort of like the hidden thing for a pedophile who likes female little girls. Then you look at Alameda Research's logo, which I didn't know a lot about, but if I had looked at it, I would have said, that looks a lot like the pedophile logo for boy lovers. It's almost the exact same logo. So is what happened here, the World Economic Forum basically propped up an exchange, made it super famous with all of their people, their Fortune magazines and their Davos summits and all that kind of stuff. All their funds put in tons of money into it to make it look legit. But it was also involved in basically the child sex trafficking, which goes happens a lot in the Caribbean. That's where Epstein's Island is, in the British Virgin Islands. These are all very close, by the way. Bahamas, British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico. Could it be that this MakerDAO guy came out and started exposing it more, so they killed him, and then this whole FTX thing, basically they just like tore it all down to try to detract from what they're doing. And a big part of what they're doing was laundering funds for the Democrats in the US. Like this, a real movie about real stuff would be incredible about all this. But it's amazing, like, if it's not on the news, then like no one really talks about it all that much. It's incredible. Meanwhile, they're doing all their sex trafficking in like the Caribbean with FTX, which is like one of the biggest frauds ever, which is like a money laundering organization for the Democrats and Biden. So, you know, they're gonna look really hard and investigate what happened there, right? Meanwhile, like people go up to Bill Clinton and say, you know, there's tons of evidence that you were at Epstein's Island like 50 times, and he just laughs. He's like, yeah, you got me.
Any comments on the alleged allegation of your connection with Jeffrey Epstein? No.
Meanwhile, I'm just building my family, getting even bigger. Oh, we're almost out of battery. Got to speed this up. Nah, this has been a long one. And here's me. Are you far left or far right? I'm farming.
No one knew how much risk was in that system. Bilateral, bespoke, non-reported transactions. No one knew how much risk was in that system. Repackaged and re-leveraged again and again and again and again. No one knew how much risk was in that system. Bilateral, bespoke, non-reported transactions. No one knew how much risk was in that system. Repackaged and re-leveraged again and 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 again. Repackaged and re-leveraged again and again and again and again and again and again.
That's a scam! Yeah, absolutely could pull it off without my math degree. Use very little math. Use a lot of like elementary school math. Being comfortable with risk is very important.
No one knew how much risk was in that system. Bilateral, bespoke, non-reported transactions. No one knew how much risk was in that system. Repackaged and re-leveraged again and 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 again. Repackaged and re-leveraged again and again and again and again and again and again. That's a scam!
Follow the treasure to pirate.black, because financial privacy today is freedom tomorrow. ARRR.